Hello and welcome to another video from the only channel that you need to not only survive the current apocalypse but actually enjoy it. And the title of today's video is Merry Christmas. Now, pretty much everybody knows that I'm not a traditional religionist, and so you may wonder how I deal with Christmas, which is a religious holiday. Well, for me, it's just a non-issue. I don't even think about it. A day is a day. They are all days. And whatever holidays we're supposed to celebrate, we'll find out after the resurrection. That's pretty much my entire take on it. However, that's not the way it's always been. This is kind of a part of the process. As a child, I did not realize that Christmas was a ritual. I honestly just trusted my parents and everything. And my parents told me that there was a Santa Claus that was going to bring me presents, and I was not going to argue with it. In fact, it was like super exciting for me for a very, very long time, probably longer than most. But eventually, you know, when I grew up, it just became a nothing to me. And I don't know if part of it was because I didn't have kids or whatever, but way, way before I even got into that part of my life, I knew it was a ritual, and I did not like rituals. So probably around 14 or 15 years old, it became kind of nothing to me. And I enjoyed getting together with all my cousins and uncles and aunts for a meal, but the materialism part was no longer anything that I got into. But there are other rituals that I have had to endure throughout my life, and this here may give you a little bit more insight into why Christmas is a non-issue for me. It's like when I was, the first time I went to school, I can remember I didn't know what was going to happen, you know. First grade, it was like a total shock to me. But we were taken out very early on. I don't remember if it was the first day, and we were told to say the Pledge of Allegiance. And it was a whole school, so there were second graders, third graders, but I didn't know what a Pledge of Allegiance was. But as time went on, I learned it, I memorized it, and I would say it. But it bothered me, because even at first grade, I was like, why would we swear allegiance to a flag? I don't understand. I knew it was an American flag, but why was that flag different than all the other flags? It just didn't make any sense to me. So probably around second or third grade, I quit saying it. You know, there's 100 kids there. They're all got their hands on their chest. They're all repeating some nonsense. And I just would stand there with my hand on my chest, not to get any, draw undue attention to myself, and just kind of stand there and think about other things. Just try not to even let myself be in that place. This really did bother me. I mean, rituals have always, since I was very, very young, rituals just didn't make any sense to me. I'm the kind of guy that likes my whole world to make sense. Rituals didn't make sense. And so I kind of just made that decision. It wasn't even anything that I vocalized to anybody or to myself. But at some point, I do remember in prayer going to God and saying, I promise I'll never involve myself in any more rituals. The problem with that is that I did not, in my mind, as of that time, have a deep understanding of what a ritual actually was. So it was a good thing to promise God I would not involve myself in rituals, but I did it not clearly understanding what rituals were. So when I would go to school, I became somewhat of a rebel. If you remember, if you just think back, if you're old enough to remember these things, they always start at school where I went to with everybody saying the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the Our Father prayer. And I don't really understand the psychology of it. I'm sure there are people out there that study such things that can tell you why this is the case, but they would pretty much force everybody to say the Pledge of Allegiance, which they would say with gusto. They would be, you know, I pledge allegiance to the flag. But then Our Father would be more like, Our Father art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth. So I would make a point of not saying the Pledge of Allegiance, but saying the Our Father very loud. Now it must be understood that I got beat up I mean, physically abused every day for the 12 years that I was in high school. And that pretty much carried out through my military career. I never participated in any of the military stuff. I did not have this opinion that everything on this side of the border was good and everything on that side of the border was evil. And so I was constantly bullied, even while I was in the military, by members of the U.S. Armed Forces. Well, in the Catholic Church, we had to do what was called First Communion. And I remember being scared to death of that. You know, all the little girls were excited because they got to dress up like a bride, but most of the guys pretty much just did it and didn't care. For me, it was horrifying. But I went through that process, and I went to church for years. I didn't know there was any such thing as any other church. And as I got older, it came time for what they call your confirmation, which is like you get baptized, that means you're a Christian. And then you have First Communion 7 years later, which is a way of confirming you're a Christian, able to perform rituals. And then they have confirmation, which is where you actually go and tell God that you're ready to be a Christian. And it was such a big deal that I would not participate. I mean, in our church, there were actually 3 churches in our little district. Probably 30 kids went to confirmation, and not a single one of them questioned it or stood up against it or said they weren't interested, except me. It was just something that everybody did. Everybody knew they had to do it, and they did it, but I wouldn't do it. And they actually sent the priest to my house to talk to my parents, because this was like a once every 4-year thing, and because you had to wait for the bishop to come through town, and he didn't come through every year. And so my parents talked to me, and then they went and told the priest he won't do it. So the priest came and talked to me personally, and I just said, you know, after he got done with his long speech, I said, well, yeah, I am going to get confirmed. And he said, good, well, come on down to, I was like, well, there's no reason for me to come to practice, because confirmation is where you confirm that you believe that the Catholic Church is the one true religion. So I can't actually do that until I've gone out and experienced some other religions. Well, that isn't true. You know, you've been in the Catholic Church. You understand that this is the one true religion. I said, like, I'm 14 years old or whatever it was. How in the world am I supposed to know this is the one true religion when I have not even a clue as to what the other gazillion untrue religions teach? You know, there has to be more of a system to this than I was lucky enough to be born in the one true religion, so I have to make that stand right now, so I'm not going to do it. And he was so frustrated. But as time went on, I got confronted with other rituals, and you know, there is birthday celebrations are a ritual, and I guess I just don't have the gene. When I was little, every year my dad would take me to town to buy presents for Mama because it was her birthday, and Mama would do the same thing. And when they stopped taking me, I stopped doing it. I mean, to this day, I haven't my dad is long dead, but my mom is still around. I go see her every week. I'm going to her house today for Christmas dinner. But I have not got a clue as to when she was born. And the worst part is it's not even part of the ritual now. I have to go pick up pharmaceuticals for her on occasion. And when you pick up somebody else's drugs at the pharmacy, you have to give them the birth date of the person you're picking the drugs up for. And to this day, every time they say, we need your mom's birthday, it's like, I have not got a clue. I have to call her and ask her. And it's just, it's like almost like I don't have the ritual gene. I just cannot comprehend wasting my time memorizing dates. And that's true of everything. If I go down to the power company to pay a bill and I take out a check and I fill a check out, I'll say, what's the date? And by nature, most people will go, it's the 13th or whatever the day. And so, all right, 13, and I'll look at them, and they'll kind of giggle and say, January, you know. So, all right, January. Then I'll look at them again, and I'm like, what year is it? I mean, it's not that I never know what year it is, but usually it takes me till around November to memorize the number of the year. It's like, I know right now, this is 2015. Next week, it'll be 2016. And for whatever reason, every time I fill out a check till about November, I have to ask what year it is. Now, there came a point when I had to graduate high school. Now, everybody who listens to my videos knows I'm pretty smart, but you may not really understand just how smart I am. I was like really, really close to being valedictorian at my school. I mean, I had all these perfect grades and everything, and they said, it's time to go get sized up for your graduation costume. I'm like, I ain't doing that. That's a ritual. I don't do rituals. So, and it really, to this day, I didn't really know until recently. I was thinking about this, and I said something to my mom, and she said, it really hurts your dad when you refuse to go to graduation, And he never revealed it to me. I mean, I remember my mom and my dad both like, well, aren't you going to go to graduation? Don't you think you should go to graduation? And it being somewhat of an issue, but they dropped it relatively quick. But when I was in high school, it wasn't dropped. They knew my favorite teacher was my band instructor. So they had my band instructor ask me to stay after school one day, and we went into his office and talked at length about me graduating. And they even threatened. They said, well, if you don't graduate, if you don't go through with the ritual, then you're not going to be graduated. And I'm like, to me, in my mind, I didn't really care. It's like, so I've got all my grades. Any fool could look at my records, right? I mean, if I got all the records saying I graduated, who cares if I get a diploma? It doesn't mean anything to me. And so I didn't go. And it wasn't no thing like I wasn't aware of the Freemasons and all that at the time. I just knew that it was really weird to ask children to put on a black costume with a square piece of stuff on your head. It was later on that I figured out what that was about. They called it a mortar board. Well, a mortar board is what a mason uses when he's laying mortar for bricks. If you'll ever see it, it looks just like that hat. It's a square thing with a handle on it, and you take a trowel and you scoop up mortar, you put it on a brick, you set the brick on the mortar. So, that's what, it's part of entering the Freemason system. And anybody that wants to badmouth Freemasons who has graduated, you are a Freemason. You're bad-mouthing yourself. But even if you haven't graduated, you're still part of this Freemason system. When you put on that little hat, it means you're ready to enter human society, civilization, and assist the builders in their war against God. That's what it means, and doesn't mean anything else. So, you are not going to believe this, but when I went to sign up for the military, they absolutely could not take me without an actual diploma. And I told them, I said, all my records are at school. If you can confirm it pretty easy that I've graduated. They said, well, without the diploma, you can't graduate. So I told my dad, I was like, I can't join the military because they won't let me in without a diploma. And I went to the school and they said that I can't have a diploma. But my dad, he was a firm believer in civilization, and he was really good at fighting, verbal fights. So, and he'd do, anybody, if he bought something that wasn't good, and he would take it back. If they didn't want to take it back, he would stand there and fight the people until they take back whatever he bought, or, that's just the way he was. But he went down there, and they're really, it's shocked to me that even my dad could not get a diploma for me, even though I had graduated, but I had not performed the ritual. So, I guess somehow the military got involved and I was able to get a diploma, and I think a lot of that was that even though my high school officers, whatever, recognized that I had not performed the ritual, they knew that if they gave me that diploma, I would have to perform a ritual to get into the military. And that was something that bothered me, but I really had no options at that point, and I kind of had made my peace with God and told him, I'm going to learn how to be a nuclear engineer, and I don't have to go to college, and I'll get paid while I'm learning, and so I'm going to do this. Well, I go into this room, and fortunately there were like 30 or 40 guys in there. We're all standing at attention, and two guys in these ridiculous costumes covered with all kinds of ribbons and medals and hash marks and insignias and floral arrangements walked in there. And so we had the guy that was administering the ritual, and then they had, and it's called something, what is it, I can't remember the name of it, but when you join the military, you got to swear in. And these two guys in fancy costumes came in, and they were staring at us, and I just knew that there was no way of getting out of this. I was going to have to, repeat after me. And it was some kind of foolishness about, I swear to kill everybody on that side of the border and defend everybody on this side of the border. But, I mean, it actually wasn't that, because they actually say something about killing everybody on both sides of the border if necessary. All enemies of the state, both foreign and domestic. And I could tell that they weren't really staring at us. They do this like every day, 100 times a day. So I just said, blah, 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 blah. And I said it quiet, but I wanted to make sure that the guys on either side of me and the guy in front of me could hear me. It was like almost, if I perform this anti-ritual, it will negate the effects of the ritual. So I did that. It's like blah, 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 blah. And when day was over with, I was in the military. And I went off to school. Well, here's one of the things about high school. I said I was like one of the smartest guys there, but I refuse to learn things that are not true, and I refuse to write down on paper something's true if it isn't true. And if you remember physics, when you're in high school, they have this thing called molar equations. And I looked at it over and over again, and I kind of understood what they were talking about, but it was obviously not based on any kind of reality. I kind of accepted the periodic table of elements, hydrogen, helium, number of atoms, electrons, neutrons, protons. But then they tried to explain what was going on inside of and I'm like, you can't explain what's going on in an atom. Up to that point, no, we didn't have these scanning electron microscopes, at least not enough where you could see even what the shape of an atom was. And I think now you can, but you can't see individual subatomic particles. All you can see is like the round shape. In other words, when you look at something that's a mirror, when you look at it, it's not a mirror. It's like billions upon billions of little balls. But I knew that was all a lie. And I really, for whatever reason, I thought maybe they were just teaching kids this stuff, because no grown-up would ever believe in molar equations. They just couldn't. It's physically impossible to make a grown-up do stupid stuff. Well, I was wrong. When I got into the Navy and I got into the nuclear engineering program, in nuclear engineering school, they went right into molar equations. And it was even the ritualistic the ritualistic way that it was all done made the whole thing even more disgusting to me. So anyways, the ritualistic nature of that process of learning molar equations was just so disturbing to me. And I knew that, a whole lot of it was, while you were in nuclear engineering school, was going through silly, silly rituals that were not real. All of my homework was stamped top secret or confidential, and it was, so we weren't able to go out of the school to do homework. You had to actually go into the school to do your homework, and they would give you like 10 hours a day of training, and then you get a half hour for breakfast, a half hour for lunch, half hour for supper, and then you had to go back and work in the school doing homework till like 1 in the morning. And it's just a process of seeing who can be broken, which is a ritual. And then they were constantly screaming at you because your clothing was not pressed properly, or your shoes weren't shiny enough, or you missed a hair when you were shaving. And that kind of stuff is just so ridiculous to me that I absolutely shut down. My brain shuts down and won't allow me to participate. So obviously I was kicked out of the nuclear engineering program and turned into a common machinist mate, which for me basically ended up being a janitor, because when I got to the actual Navy where I was on a ship, everybody knew that I was like a nonconformist because I didn't participate in their junk. And so for 6 years in the Navy, I was an E4. I never went up in rank, ever once. And it was like a record. There was nobody else in the entire Navy. I'd never in my life have met somebody who was in the Navy at the same rank for 6 years. So, I mean, unless you get to be a general or something, because you can't go any higher. But anyways, I was really praying a lot back then. I was reading the Bible over and over again, and I know that during the course of that time, I promised God that I would not participate in any rituals whatsoever. Well, here I am now. I'm an old man, and I've taken my stand against rituals, and I've made a big point of showing off that I don't participate in rituals. Now it's just like not a big deal. I don't even care. So I'm not going to say I'm comfortable with it, but it's like every year, like Veterans Day or Memorial Day or whatever days they have for that stuff, I always get phone calls from people thanking me for my service, and I get phone calls from people, just patting on the back. I get Skype calls from YouTube subscribers, and I just recognize that I'm out of the loop. Nobody, and I'm the only one that's out of the loop. Everybody else pretty much feels some connection to this human society we're in, and it's uncomfortable for them not to say Merry Christmas to people they love, or Happy New Year or whatever. So when people say Merry Christmas, I say thanks. That's it. There's no reason to go, Christmas is a satanic ritual, I shall not partaketh in your evils. Just thanks. Thanks is good enough. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I know that a lot of my subscribers are not at the point where I'm at. They're at a point where I was a year ago, or 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. And I'm not telling you not to let that process take place. I'm just telling you this is where I ended up, and there's a pretty good chance that you'll end up in the same place that I'm at right now, eventually. I still don't celebrate birthdays. I know when my birthday is, somewhat. I know it's, I know the date, but I don't keep track of the date. So when my birthday gets here, it's always somebody else that tells me about it. And it makes me feel kind of uncomfortable, because my mom will say, hey, do you know what day it is? And it doesn't take me long. I'm like, okay, this is like May. Must be my birthday. Is it my birthday? Because it's just doesn't. And if my wife was here, she could tell you. It's like when people say, how old are you? It's like the big numbers I remember. I remember when I was 10 years old that I was 10 years old. That was real easy. And when I was 18, that was a big number, because now I could buy all kinds of stuff I didn't want to buy. And 50 was a big number. But right now I am 53. And I guess that's come up recently, and in fact I thought about it right before I turned on my camera, because I didn't want to say something stupid. But I mean, normally when people ask me, how old are you? I'll say, well, I'm 53 or 54. And I say, well, what is it? I'm like, well, if I knew what it was, I'd tell you. Or why don't you want me to know your real birthday, your real age? Like, I don't care if you know my real age, I just don't know it. But I still, to this day, am not at all, I don't participate in any rituals, but at the same time, I do, because it's all a learning process. When I first got out, my wife moved in with me, I had no intention of ever marrying her. I talked to her about it. She goes, oh no, marriage is evil. I would never want to be married. I was like, good, because I'm not getting married. It's wrong. And I'm a firm believer in the Bible, I had already at that time kind of looked into the Greek and the Hebrew portions of or versions of the Bible, and I knew that marriage was not really, there wasn't any real command for humans to get married. The command was to have sex, and there wasn't anything added to that. I was okay with that rule. But after my wife lived with me for a few years, she started telling me, you don't want to marry me because you don't love me. Well, I did love her, and I didn't want her to feel that way, and was no no skin off my back. I didn't care, because marriage didn't mean anything to me, so I married her. But that was a humongous mistake, because not because I didn't want to be with her or anything, but because it dirtied me. I felt spiritually sick after that for a long time, because I had performed this evil ritual after years of no rituals. And basically, I guess that's it. I really don't have anything else to add to that. To this day, when any kind of ritual comes up, oh no, there is something I want to add, because if you're following the same course as me, then you're dealing with people right now inviting you to come over and eat Christmas dinner with them. For a long time, I would just say, no, I will not participate in Christmas dinner. And I did that for maybe, well, I was a Jehovah's Witness for 15 years, and maybe for 5 years after that, I would make a big deal out of it. But eventually I just said, you know what, okay, here's the way they reason with you. It's just any other day. It's just a meal. You can't have a meal because it's December 25th, or you're going to have a meal at your house, but you can't have a meal at my house, so they'll do that. But when you get there, it's a different story. And my dad was great at this. you say, okay, Dad, I'll come eat dinner with you on December 25th, but I don't want you to take it that I'm celebrating Christmas. You said you just want me to eat a meal with you, and it's just any other day. So I'm going to come eat a meal with you like it's just any other day. And you get there, and he's got gifts for you, and they're wrapped in paper that says Merry Christmas, and he gives you the gifts. And this is what they all do. People who are citizens are nothing like human beings. A human being, they want to do what God tells them. Eat food, get plenty of rest, reproduce offspring. Citizens, they want you to have a sports team, a favorite sports team. They want you to choose a political party. They want you to be informed about what the networks tell you to believe. And they want you to participate in some kind of sports like golf or whatever. And they'll do anything to get you involved in that. They'll lie, cheat, and steal to get you to the point where they can say, I made him celebrate Christmas, or I made him play golf. I've seen him play golf, so he's a liar. He says he doesn't perform rituals, but I've seen him root for a sports team or pick a political candidate. I just don't even talk about it. Somebody tells me about how a particular political leader is the Antichrist, I just say, I don't know. I don't keep up with that guy. You know, when he finally, when the Antichrist reveals himself as such, then I'll let you know. But for right now, I don't watch the network, so I don't have any idea what these people are doing, and don't care. But yeah, it was like my dad. He was always trying to get me to come eat a dinner with him, and then he'd try to get me to take presents. And here's the thing about people that will do that stuff. And this is all of them, because I've gone to family reunions around Christmas time, and and everybody knows I don't celebrate Christmas, but they'll always give me gifts. And they're always like, it's not really Christmas, it's just that I love you, I'm going to give you a gift, and I do not have the ability to give you a gift on any day other than December 25th. It's not anything to do with Christmas. And then, and here, see this little glass ball? Could you go hang this on that tree over there? That's not a Christmas tree. It's just a tree that happens to be in our living room covered with decorations. And it just would make me feel good. You know, there's always these lies, because human beings it's very difficult for us to lie. And so it's hard for us to accept that other people lie, but citizens live a lie. Everything about them is a lie. And you just have to let it, just let it go. Because you can't fix them. They're just too... God says the only way to fix them is to kill them, and that's coming. So when that happens, they'll be resurrected with some kind of thinking abilities, and they won't do that stuff anymore. But that's the thing. That's one of the things about my mom, though, it's really cool, is that every year she'll invite me to Thanksgiving or Christmas or something. A lot of times she'll just go out to the casinos with her friends on those days, because a lot of her friends are like her. They're women in their 70s, and they don't really have their children around them anymore, or whatever. So they'll just go have a good time. But occasionally my mom will have us over, and she says, it's just a meal. We get there, it's just a meal. There's no Christmas tree, there's no gifts, there's no talk about baby Jesus in a manger. There's none of that. We just have a meal, and we love it. So even with my wife, for a while, we were being invited over to my in-laws' house. And my wife would... she would be like weeks in advance going, call your mom and see if we could come eat with her, so I'll have an excuse. I don't want to go anywhere on Christmas except your mom's house. I don't want to get involved in all that stuff. And it was that was like my dad. My in-laws were like my dad. They would say, hey, it's just a meal. We'd go over there, and it would be like 50 presents, and they were always Christmas-related presents or demonic. For the last few years, like every time I go there, they would give me something with Satan on it, or like there was like this last time I went, they gave me a t-shirt that had, I think it was like I don't even remember, it was like a skeleton with wings on a motorcycle. And, you know, you get that stuff home and you think, maybe we should leave it in the car. I don't want demons to think I'm on their side. But anyway, yeah, just that's my experience with Christmas, and it's my experience with everything that people do ritualistically, like shaving or even wearing clothes. I know that I can't sit here in front of a camera on YouTube naked. People would get offended, and I honestly, it's like I don't wear clothes around the house, and a few times people have drove up and kind of caught me sitting outside naked or whatever, and it even makes me uncomfortable because I know how society works, even though I couldn't care less who knows that I have male genitalia or a crack on my butt, but apparently that's it's something that it bothers people really, really bad. So I'm really uncomfortable when people see me like that. But at the same time, I just cannot force myself to perform rituals. And basically, in the summer when it's 95 degrees around here, wearing clothing cannot be associated with anything but ritualistic behavior. Oh well, Merry Christmas. And if you don't want to survive, don't listen to me.